Hey friends, it's Sarah Noah Block, founder of Tiny Marketing, and this is Marketing a Tiny Bit Smarter, where we dive into marketing tactics and give you actionable advice that you can implement today. Housekeeping, if you have questions, ask them in the comments at any time. Won't interrupt us, it's totally fine. And at the end of this session, we'll answer any questions that come through. Today, I have Lidia Varesco Racoma, who will be teaching all about digital branding. And this is for beginners. You're good to go. If you've never even thought about your digital brand before, this is for you. Lidia is the founder of Lidia Varesco Design in Chicago, and she empowers organizations and entrepreneurs to make a change through strategic branding and marketing design. She's part of nonprofit communities. She's on the board of directors for the Association of Consultants to Nonprofits, liaison to the Marketing and Communication Committee, and committees for Association Forum and the American Marketing Association. And that is actually where I met her, was an AMA event where I was speaking in March, right before COVID hit, like immediately before. It was like the last event I did. So I'm so excited to have her, and I'm going to pull her on right now. Hey.
Hello. Hi. I think that was the last event. I know they had lots of sanitizer on the tables.
Yes. It was just the beginning of COVID. We had lots of hand sanitizer, and it was like the last thing that ever they did in person.
Yep, totally. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so glad that we connected at that event. It was amazing, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
And I'm so excited to be here. So like Sarah mentioned, I'm Lidia of Lidia Varesco Design. I'm actually celebrating 20 years in business this week.
Congratulations.
Great. Thank you. Very excited about that. So as Sarah mentioned, I work with nonprofits and associations as well as entrepreneurs, small businesses. I really do like helping people really learn how they can empower themselves and really get their message out through their branding and their marketing and design. So today we will be talking about digital branding 101, and we've got a short period of time, so I'm going to go through it kind of quickly, but I'll definitely be available for any questions afterwards. And you can always reach out to me either at my website, which is lsvdesign.com, and I'm also on social media at lsvdesign. All right, can we get started?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So first we will talk about what is digital branding. So digital branding is how people perceive and interact with your organization, with your company in the digital space. So as you can see, I've got a couple of examples here, of what we kind of typically consider the digital space. Obviously, your website, social media, email marketing, as well as, content marketing type of situations, blogging, podcasts like this, webinars, all of those digital touch points where people see you. So just to kind of give a little distinction between marketing and branding. So marketing is really that action-oriented part, download this piece, contact us, buy this from us, hire us. While branding is really focusing on the awareness. So that's where you're making the emotional connection. You are expressing your who, what, and why, and you're helping your audience really get to know you. And there's a great quote here by Marty Neumeier. He's an author and a brand expert. And he says, any effort to get customers is marketing. Any effort to keep them is branding. And I really like to look at it that way, that it's really an ongoing process to keep your customers around. Oops. My screen has frozen for a second here. Uh-oh. Hold on, let me try to, I'm gonna try to stop and then we'll go back to the share.
Sounds good.
It's not a virtual talk without a little hiccup. Okay. All right, there we go.
You're
no. You know what? Let's do this.
If it's frozen, we could do the slides.
Yeah, maybe we will. It might be because I am. Okay, there we go. Let's start from the top. All right, can you see it now?
No, you removed it.
Okay, let's go back to, all right, I think we should be good now. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Oops. Okay, so let's, you know what? That's the wrong button. Let's go back to, here we go. All right, let me know if we're good now. Are we good?
You're good.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk a little bit about why digital branding is important. So every user will take a slightly different digital journey. So it's, you really don't know where they're going to find you. They might fall on your website. They might find you on social media. They might get an email, forwarded to them from somebody else. They might hear you on a podcast like this. So that's one of the reasons that you really want to make sure that your branding is consistent and strategic throughout all of your digital outlets, digital touch points. So effective digital branding can help you grow your business. You can helps you attract prospects, create those connections that will eventually, turn into clients, build relationships. Also, some people, a lot of people don't think about it, but it also helps you to attract and retain staff and partners that you might work with, collaboration partners. And then finally, it helps you to deliver a strong multi-channel experience. So you're not just reaching out to people on one channel, but throughout all of your marketing channels. And as you can see at this stat at the bottom from OnBrand, building an audience is more valuable than direct sales for over 70% of brand managers. So, of course, we want to focus on sales and getting those clients, but building that audience is really, really important as well. And branding is one way to do it. So the basics of all branding, whether it's non-digital or digital, is really starting with your who, what, and why. So we're going to dive into that right now because I want to make sure that you have a solid foundation for your branding. So who are the people you work with? What is the problem you solve? Why is the reason you exist? And how are the ways you express your brand? So some of those touch points that we looked at, like website and email and social. So who you work with are, of course, the people that receive your services or buy your products, but it's also vendors, it's collaborators, and it's those, team members and staff that we talked about. That's part of your who. And then the what is that problem that you're solving, that situation that you're making easier for them, the expertise you're sharing. It's those pain points, right? Like that's something that we talk about in marketing, focus on the pain points. We also want to address that in our brand as well when we're developing our brand. And then the why, this is my favorite part. I feel that this is the most important part. This is, why you do what you do. So this is, of course, your mission and vision. Hopefully you have one for your company or will develop it because it's a really great guiding force to have for your branding and your marketing. It's also your story. It's your voice, how you speak to your audience. It's that unique experience that only you can deliver for them, right? And then it's your values. And as you can see at the bottom, this stat from Harvard Business Review, 64% of consumers cite shared values as the primary reason they have a relationship with a brand. People really want to be aligned with you and what you do and what you stand for. So in my opinion, this is the part to focus most of your time on when you're developing your brand is really that why, right? Once you've figured out who you're working with and delivering your services or products to, really think about that why. So now I'm going to talk really briefly just about using on-brand messaging and visuals and how to do that effectively. And then I'll show some samples so we can kind of see it in action. So as I mentioned, you really want to focus on that who, what, and why. That needs to be your guiding force throughout all of this as you're developing your digital branding. You want to tell your story through visuals and messaging. So, when people think about storytelling, they might think a little more about messaging, like, what do I say on my about page? What's my elevator pitch? But it's really also about telling that story through visuals. So let's start first with the messaging. So tell your story, tell your why, right? Why you got started, why you do what you do. Use your audience's words. You really want to, not talk in that industry jargon. I know that I have a tendency sometimes to do that, but talk like they would talk, what they would understand. Be authentic, honest, and real. That's really, really important. That stems from your why, really conveying that to your audience. And then customizing your message for different audience segments. This is something that's really important. And I think it's a challenge for both my nonprofit clients as well as my small business clients, is like you might have different audiences that you're speaking to. So you're not necessarily changing your brand, but you are adjusting how you speak to those segments digitally. And this is, in email marketing, this is huge. So next, the visuals. How do we use the visual part of our brand? Well, again, we're going to go back to the who, what, and why, telling your story through those images that you choose. Having a logo that really embodies your mission and what you do. Using colors and typography that also reflect that, what you do in your mission and your story, and imagery especially. And you'll see in some of the samples I show you how you can really tell your story through imagery, right? And that people resonate with that. Image posts are the top social media, for social media engagement right now. So that's something that you really want to focus on in your branding. And then using, just your brand colors. Don't use 50 different colors and fonts, on your website or other brand touch points. Use your brand colors and be consistent. Make sure they're the right size and format. That's a huge consideration with digital branding. When you're uploading files to Facebook, don't stretch it out of proportion. Make sure that it looks good and it looks consistent on all of your digital outlets. And then lastly, engage and educate. And this is something that kind of applies with both messaging and visual. But it's nice to do in visual because, you can engage with like really great images, and then you can educate with like stats, infographics, right? So have a nice mix, right, as you're telling your story. So here's a few examples I'll show you just to kind of give you an idea of that digital branding actually working in real life, right? Like how you may apply it to your digital touchpoints. So these examples are from Imagination Content. They are a content marketing agency here in Chicago. I just love their digital branding. I think they do a great job, which is why I picked them as a case study here. But we'll start off here with their website. So first of all, you can see it's making a strong impression, right? This is what you want. If this is the first place that audience member stumbles upon you, you want to have a strong first impression. They're really giving you their who, what, and why on their page. Their visual branding is prominent. They're using their logo, their colors. You can see their brand colors orange. Images, they're using kind of similar images throughout. And they're telling their story through their images, right? They're not just telling you what they do, but they're showing you what they do, and speaking to their audience in turn. And again, they're also doing a nice job of doing that engaging and educating. And you'll see that kind of throughout all of their digital branding. So next is their social media. I really love seeing their posts on Instagram. As you can see right off the bat, they use their brand orange. They have a nice mix of some spontaneous images and branded images, which is great. You don't want your feed to be all branded images or all spontaneous, snapshots. And again, they're telling their story through their images. Their images and their messaging also really reflects their brand values. So that they're local, they're Chicago-based, right? They're really focused on collaboration. They're focused on, content marketing. And you can see that through their images as well as their messaging. And they have a consistency. As we go from page to page, you see how they are developing this consistency throughout their branding. So here is their content hub, which is called Imagination. I'm a big fan of content hubs. I really like when companies have this type of hub on their website. So this is where they have, all the various resources that they're sharing with their audience segments. And so now you can see, now that we've seen a couple of examples, they're using a similar style of imagery. Their messaging is consistent. Their voice is consistent. Color, right? You can tell off the bat, orange, even like, look at the stock images, they're wearing orange. They've been really intentional in choosing images to correspond with their branding. And the content is targeted to their audience. So here we're talking about like those pain points that we talked about, right? So they're focusing on content that is targeted to those pain points. And then lastly, they, by having this content hub, they're getting great SEO, driving website traffic, and most importantly, they're increasing their brand awareness. So more people will likely find out about them because now they have another digital touch point where people can see and learn about them besides their website and their social media. Oops, I think my thing has frozen again, but I think I might just have one more slide left. So I'm going to do my stop sharing and try it again. But I think I'm about ready to wrap up anyway. All right, so let's go to, yep, so we've got our recap here. Sorry for all these technical issues. Okay, so just to recap, how to create and use effective digital branding. Focus on the who, what, and why. That's the main thing. And I'll give you some resources on the last page. I'll give you a link to go to where I've got some great worksheets to kind of help you go through your who, what, and why. Like Sarah said, like some of you may be just kind of diving in with your branding or maybe revamping it, rebranding. So really focus on that who, what, and why. That's your framework. That's your starting point. And then start to tell your story through those visuals and messaging. And sometimes it can help to create like a mood board or create a brand guide for yourself so that you have everything documented and like, okay, here's our mission, here's our vision, this is our voice, our voice is friendly and approachable. And, sometimes when it's all documented, it's easier to implement it, right? Be authentic, honest, and real. That's something that's really important, especially right now, right? Everybody is being very honest about our work-life situations. And then be consistent in visuals and messaging. So like we saw in that imagination content example, they're super consistent. You really start to get to know them. Like when their post pops up in Instagram, I know it's them. And be memorable, and I think their content was a good example also of being memorable. Once you see a couple of their posts, you kind of get to know them. And then when you see it pop up in your feed, then you might stop and look at it, or, you'll recognize an email you get from them. So that's really the bottom line, is like, we want to be memorable. We want people to remember us and come back to us after they first experience us and our brand. So as I mentioned, you can find me on social media at LSV Design. I've got a landing page with some digital branding resources. So I've got some worksheets on, finding your audience, writing a social media marketing mission, and then a lot of really great blog posts to help kind of work through that process. And I'm always happy to answer questions. And if we have time, I will throw it back to Sarah, see if we have time for questions.
Girl, I was just putting in your resources page into the comments so everyone could see it.
Great.
Click on it anyway.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I honestly learned so much listening to that.
Good. I'm so glad.
Be like an audience member. I am part of it. So that was exciting.
Great. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, it was fun. Can you tell everyone, if they're starting out, what is the easiest way to create that? You talked about like a brand board to identify how they want to structure their brand, what elements they want. What's the easiest way to do that when you're starting out?
Yes. So definitely I suggest spending some time really thinking about that who, what, and why. So maybe getting out your sketchbook or your notebook and taking some notes, writing things down, and really kind of figuring that out to lay the groundwork. And then start thinking about, some of the visuals. Like then you can start thinking like colors, what color palettes might I want to use? What type of imagery might I want to use in my branding? And then creating like that mood board, right? So you could just literally have like a PowerPoint page and just drop images on there and drop colors on there, maybe even put like words on there. When I work with clients, a lot of times I will start a list of keywords that applies, to that client. You can put those keywords on there and you'll see that it really kind of starts to come together and your brand starts to really come together. And then from that point, you can start doing some of the more advanced things, which would be, developing a logo. If you don't quite have a logo or really that brand presence, you can start to pull that together. You can start to create messaging maybe for each of those audiences. Like, how would I want to talk to this group of audience and how would I talk to this audience?
What do they care about? Can you hear
Exactly. What are their pain points? Like that's really the main thing is like, how can I help them? Right.
Yeah.
So start small, but really base all of your work on that who, what, and why.
Okay. I mean, I like to use Pinterest when I'm creating like a visual mood board. Yep. I drag in images into there that I think would apply to my brand. And there might be some element of like when you're looking at those keywords you just talked about, maybe the psychology behind them. Like, what color should you choose based on the keywords that you find important for your brand?
Yes, definitely. And color is huge. Color is definitely, I've got a stat that's like, if you have like strong brand colors and you're consistent, you're like 80% more effective, in the awareness part, right? The brand awareness is more effective. So yeah, definitely choosing colors that fit, what you do. Like if you're, a food company, a lot of food companies use, of course, like, natural colors that are, found in nature, greens and goldens. And, so then again, of course, you can like start with that and sort of go out of the box. But I think it's great to really think about, how do the colors affect what I'm trying to say? How does the font, typography is huge. Like if you're a company that's like friendly and fun and you pick kind of a boring typeface, there's a disconnect, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's definitely like, I'm looking at your font, your typography and your background, like it really fits, right? So that's what we want.
I hope so.
I think it does.
From the expert, you heard it.
Yes.
So I have a question. If you're working with a team, or if this is like a larger company that's considering their branding, how do you regulate it so that, let's say there's 100 people in the company and multiple people are creating presentations for proposals or whatnot. How do you maintain that consistency?
Yes, this is one of my favorite topics because I'm going to talk about brand guides. I love
brand guides.
I tell everybody they need a brand guide. Like even my small business clients who's like, one person rocking it, like you still need a brand guide, right? Like, yeah, me too. We still need brand guides. They might not be like 50 pages long, but we still need a brand guide. So that's the number one thing is really, like I said before, document the aspects of your brand, the characteristics of your brand. And it can be simple, you can start small, like a brand guide it's kind of a big project, to create one. I'm in the process right now of finishing one up for a client and for a small business client. And it can be a big project, but you can start small and really, start with kind of the basics of your visuals and your messaging. So of course, you have your logo there, your brand colors, your brand fonts, and then kind of the basics of your branding. So you would have your mission, vision, you would have a little bit about your voice, you would have maybe some values, some core values. And then if you are able to create a brand positioning statement, so that's kind of like, we do this for this customer because this. So you're kind of taking your who, what, and why and turning it into a statement. So, you, of course, like you can expand upon it. You can have marketing templates in there. You can have, writing guidelines, different things like that. But you can definitely start small. And once you have it in one place, you put it in a Dropbox or Google Drive, and then everyone on the team can access it.
Yes.
And then you have your logos in another folder and your colors, with all the specifications, because people will ask, well, what's our Pantone color? What color do we use on the web? So it's all in there in that nice PDF file, and it really does keep everyone on track.
Yeah, that just reminded me. So I work with I build a lot of curated teams for my clients, and having brand guidelines helps so much with that, because if I'm hiring someone to do graphic design for them, I can grab their brand guidelines, and it's so easy to it reduces the edits a lot because they know exactly what they want. And the same goes for content writing. If you have brand guidelines, you have an awareness of the voice that you're supposed to be using. And sometimes you'll even have a template for how the blog should be structured. I love guidelines. It saves so much time, especially when you're outsourcing.
Definitely. Oh my gosh, it's huge when you're outsourcing. Like when I get brand guidelines from a client, I celebrate. I always tell them thank you, because I can get the feel for the brand, right? And it also helps when you hire somebody, if you have a new team member, give them those brand guidelines instead of them poking around files, trying to find this, trying to find that. It really gives them a nice overview. So it's great for those outsourced vendors, but then it's also great for your team internally to have those guidelines, and get your team involved when you're putting them together too. I think that's important, to that you do have input. If you do have a lot of people that are working together, get their input. Does this brand positioning sound like us? Is this our voice? Are these our core values? It's nice. And then I think people like when they can be a part of that process too. So
yeah, and that makes sense, especially for marketing and sales, outward facing employees, because they know how customers react and what would resonate with them. So it's good to get their input.
Yes. And they know the pain points.
Yeah.
Those are the people to talk to about the pain points. For sure.
With the sales people is the first thing I do. What are the pain points that we're solving? What are people requesting when you're having a call with them?
Yeah, exactly. It's a wealth of information. When I work with my small business clients, I totally get the sales team involved, right? Because it's great to work with the marketing team, but then we need to know those pain points, and we need to know what customers are asking, right? Because that all does figure into your brand and how you express your brand.
Completely. So can you tell everyone how they can work with you and find you online?
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me at lsvdesign.com. That's my website. And then you can email me through there. And I'm also on social media at LSV Design. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Medium. And I love talking to people about branding and marketing and design. So any questions you have, definitally reach out.
All right. Thank you for coming on. I learned a ton. I'm excited.
I'm so glad. And I'm so glad we got to collaborate.
Same. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right. Let's wrap it up. And real quick, hi, Wisconsin in the house. And South Africa. Hey. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. Next week will be a solo stream, and it's going to be about my 15-minute hack to increase your email list. So you don't want to miss that. It'll be 11 a.m. Central Time, and you probably will also hear the construction noise behind me because we're renovating, and I'm sorry. As a reminder, you can work with me in a few different ways. I work with small B2Bs as virtual marketing director, running everything for you. I work with marketing agencies and small marketing departments to support their content creation. You can join my live streams as a guest, just like Lidia did at sarahnoelblock.com/livestream. And last, you can join my monthly marketing challenges where you learn a new skill and implement it in 4 weeks. Go to sarahnoelblock.com/challenge to get notified about that. And thank you so much for joining me.